Mutual funds, notably part of employer-sponsored 401k plans and self-directed IRAs, are among the most popular ways to participate in the stock and bond markets. Mutual funds enable you to invest in a diverse portfolio of assets in a single fund at a cheap cost. As a result, you'll be able to build a diversified portfolio quickly, conveniently, and affordably. But with thousands of funds to choose from, how can you pick the best ones for your portfolio? In today's video, we'll discuss some of the greatest mutual funds according to Forbes. Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Flawless Finances, and we're back with another video to help you fix your financial problems. Please subscribe to the channel and switch on notifications to be notified of new uploads before we begin. Let's start with a shared understanding of what a money mutual fund is before moving on to the top money mutual funds in 2021. Best liquid funds, also known as money market funds, are debt mutual funds, or rather money market mutual funds, with the only variation being the investment period. Money market funds invest in very short-term money market securities such as certificates of deposit, treasury bills, commercial papers, and other similar instruments. If you're new, you might be curious, how do money mutual funds work? A money market fund invests in money market instruments intending to generate high returns, often known as interest income, while limiting NAV swings to a minimum. Money market instruments come in a variety of shapes and sizes. The money market is a market where cash and cash equivalent instruments are traded. The maturities of the securities traded in the money markets range from overnight to 1 year. Here are some of India's most influential money market instruments. The first are treasury bills, sometimes known as T-bills. The Indian government issues treasury bills to raise funds for up to 365 days. Because the government issues them, they are thought to be relatively safe. But on the other hand, lower risks imply lower rewards, which is also the case with treasury bills. As a result, T-bills offer lower returns than other money market securities. The certificate of deposit, or CD, comes next. A CD is a term deposit issued by scheduled commercial banks that do not allow for early redemption. The main distinction between a CD and an FD is that CDs can be freely traded. The repurchase agreements, or repos, come next. To facilitate short-term loans, a bank and the RBI enter into a repurchase agreement. It's also possible to make it between two banks. Commercial paper, or CP, is another option. Commercial paper is a short-term unsecured promissory note that companies and financial institutions can issue a good credit rating. Thus, it enables these businesses to diversify their short-term borrowing options. CPs are typically granted at a discount, with redemption taking place at face value. The investor earns the difference. So, why should you invest in money market funds given all of this? Money market securities have low risk profile. Money market funds are the safest and most secure type of mutual fund investing. It's simple to invest in a money market account if you consider money market funds. Investors who invest in mutual funds can open an account, make deposits, and withdrawals at their leisure. Money market funds are one of the least volatile types of mutual fund investments available. Let's discuss the top 8 money market mutual funds for 2021. To begin, consider the Fidelity Money Market Fund, SPRXX. The Fidelity Money Market Fund has the lowest minimum commitment of any funds on our list, making it a very accessible alternative for everyday investors. The fund invests more than a quarter of its total assets in financial services-related products. Aside from that, the fund invests in local and international money market assets denominated in U.S. dollars and U.S. government securities and repurchase agreements. For the fund, it may enter into reverse repurchase agreements. Let's look at the portfolio composition. It has $42 billion and $3 million in total net assets. Its commercial paper for financial companies is up to 47.3%. Non-negotiable time deposits account for around 19.1% of total deposits. The interest rate on U.S. Treasury debt is 14.5%. Certificates of deposit have a yield of 9.9%, and other repurchase agreements have a yield of 9.6%. The Wells Fargo Cash Investment Money Market Fund, WFAXX, is the next one on the list. The Wells Fargo Cash Investment Money Market Fund invests in a diverse portfolio of assets, including bank liabilities, commercial paper, asset-backed securities, corporate and medium-term notes, adjustable rate instruments, repurchase agreements, and government debt. Let's look at the portfolio's composition. It has $94,700,000 in total net assets. The government agency repurchase agreements have a maximum interest rate of up to 33%, while the asset-backed commercial paper has a 19% interest rate. Tender option bonds provided a yield of 7%. Then there are the 7% certificates of deposit. The interest rate on non-negotiable time deposits is 5%. The financial company commercial paper, on the other hand, is 4%. Municipal debt accounts for 2% of total debt, while other instruments account for 5%. Next on the list is the Vanguard Federal Money Market Fund, VMFXX. With a $3,000 minimum commitment, the Vanguard Federal Money Market Fund is a more accessible money market choice than the other funds on our list. This fund invests at least 99.5% of its total assets in cash, U.S. government securities, or repurchase agreements using U.S. government securities or cash as the sole collateral. Let's look at the composition of its portfolio. The total net assets are $200, $3 billion, and $2 million, with U.S. Treasury bills accounting for 78.1%, U.S. government obligations for 20.8%, and repurchase agreements accounting for 1.1%. Then we have the Schwab Value Advantage Money Fund, SNAXX. The Invesco Premier Portfolio Fund strives to provide a competitive yield while preserving capital and maintaining liquidity for its clients. The fund generally invests in short-term securities and commercial paper issued by creditworthy enterprises, banks, and finance companies, as well as debt instruments issued by the U.S. government. Let's look at the portfolio composition of the company. Its total net assets are $32 billion and $2 million. With repurchase agreements accounting for 27.7%, certificates of deposit for 24.2%, and commercial paper accounting for 21.2%. The U.S. Treasury debt is 14.6%, followed by 6.1% for non-negotiable time deposits and 4.6% for non-U.S. sovereign debt. Other instruments has a yield of 1.1%, while variable rate demand notes has 0.5%. Good day, mates! So far, we've made it halfway through our list. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments area below. Going back to the list, we have Federated Hermes Prime Cash Obligations Fund, PCOXX. The Federated Hermes Prime Cash Obligations Fund intends to provide liquidity and principal stability to its investors. The fund primarily invests in a portfolio of high-quality, dollar-denominated fixed-income securities issued by banks, businesses, and the government of the United States. Let's look at the portfolio's composition. It has $24 billion in total net assets. Asset-backed commercial paper, ABCP, is a 25% asset-backed commercial paper, and the commercial paper of a finance company is 20%. Certificates of deposit, CDs, have a rate of 14.2%. The other repurchase agreement is worth 13.8% of the total. The commercial paper of non-financial companies is 7.3%. The interest rate on the non-negotiable time deposit is 7.3%. The investment company, on the other hand, is 6.1%. The United States of America Government Agency repurchase agreement is 2.6%, and the other instruments 3.6%. Next is Vanguard Treasury Money Market Fund, VUSXX. Vanguard Treasury Money Market Fund is one of the company's most cautious investment options. The fund primarily invests in U.S. Treasury securities. It must hold debt issued directly by the government in the form of Treasury bills for at least 80% of its assets, and it may also invest in other securities such as agency debt or repurchase agreements that are collateralized by U.S. government securities or cash. Let's look at the portfolio's composition. It has $38 billion and $7 million in total net assets, with 13.4% in U.S. government obligations and 86.6% in U.S. Treasury bills. And the last money market mutual fund on this list is the Invesco Premier Portfolio Fund, IMRXX. With a $1,000 minimum buy-in, the Invesco Premier Portfolio Fund is the second most accessible option on our list, following Fidelity's SPRXX fund. The fund generally invests in short-term securities and commercial paper issued by credit-worthy enterprises, banks, and finance companies, as well as debt instruments issued by the U.S. government. Let's look at the portfolio composition. It has $1,057 million in total net assets, including 24.7% in certificates of deposit and 23.5% in repurchase agreements. Financial company commercial paper has an interest rate of 18.6%, while asset-backed commercial paper has 14.3%. The non-financial commercial paper yields 13.6%, followed by 3.6% for the variable rate demand note and 1.7% for the U.S. Treasury repurchase agreement. That concludes today's video. Please subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified of future uploads. Flawless Financial here, and we'll see you in our next video.